Hello everyone, welcome to my channel about writing stuff. My name's Camille and I am an expert. Not really. I've been racking my brain for some video topics to write about, and my purpose with these blogs is to help you be a better writer. And instead of rehashing all the same kind of crap that's out there, I thought I would do something that's very personal to me and something that I am somewhat of an expert in. So I decided to start the series where I basically talk to you about my personal experience in one thing or another. I'm also an artist. I went to culinary school. I am a wife and a dog mom and house owner. I work for a cell phone company. So there are just facets of my life that I feel like writers could benefit from. And, that first person resource when writing a character or trying to understand a community or something like that is just priceless. So today we are going to talk about being an artist, the art community, the art world, art supplies, and things like that, so that if you are writing an artist character, you can get some of these things right. So, first things first, artist. So, for me, I use several different mediums. I like to paint in acrylic, oils, and watercolors. I also draw. I used to do pastels, not that much anymore. I sometimes use colored pencils, brush ink, ink pens. I also do beadwork. I make clay dolls, blah, blah, blah. And this isn't uncommon. There are some artists who sort of dabble in everything, and then there are some artists who specialize in that one medium and one style. I've actually found that the artists who kind of stick to the one style, they're very recognizable, and I feel like they get better faster, because the thing with art is when you're trying to learn a new medium, so like while you're doing art, while you're trying to learn a new medium, there's just more stuff to fight. You have to fight the paint, or how the paint lays down, or how the brushes work, things like that. So that's something to keep in mind. Artists who kind of stick with one or two main mediums usually get better a lot faster and have more of a control of what they're doing. So let's talk about paint. I read this story. It was a romance novel a few months ago, and it was a really cute story, like really cute love story. But it had this side plot. One of the characters was an artist, and it was just, there were so many things about that book that was frustrating. Basically, the main character paints with acrylic, but there were lines every now and then where the character would say something like, "Oh, it's been an hour, the paint should be dry now." So lesson number one, acrylic paint dries really, really fast. Unless you're like globbing the paint onto the canvas, acrylic paint dries really fast. It's water soluble, so it plays well with watercolor paints, with colored pencils, with ink, stuff like that. Whereas oil paints can take up to 24 hours to dry, and it does not play well with others. Oil and water don't mix. Who knew? So there's something else to think about. Art supplies in general don't usually smell like anything. They're not fragrant enough, I guess. Like acrylic paint doesn't really smell like anything. Clay kind of smells, pastels kind of smell, but it's more like a dry, stuffy storeroom kind of smell, kind of like dry cardboard. But oil paint, oh my God. Okay, so oil paint smells like fish eggs. It's freaking gross. And the stuff you use to mix in with it, like linseed oil, smells like fish eggs. Totally gross. Liquid, it smells like something died and is rotting away. And then, of course, you have like paint thinner, which is probably why I'm missing so many brain cells, because I inhale that shit like nobody's business. Not on purpose, mind you. And yeah, so if you have a character who paints in oil, really smelly. Also, it's so hard to get oil paint out of clothes or the furniture or whatever, whereas acrylic paint, you can just use soap and water. With oil paint, you have to use like a whole entire roll of paper towels and paint thinner, and it's awful. It is so bad. So yeah, that's a big thing. If you have any artist characters, they use a lot of paper towels. A lot of paper towels. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's say you have a character who is painting watercolor. I've seen it written in books before that, character so-and-so was, brushing the watercolor on the paper. When you use watercolors, it's about moving around the water, not just like the paint on its own, but there's a lot of water used. So if I were to describe watercolor painting in a book, I would use the words pushing and pulling. Caveat: I highly recommend that if you're writing an artist character, you yourself should dabble around with those mediums. That way you can understand, what it's like when the oil pastel or the charcoal comes off on your fingers, what it feels like, what it tastes like. Oh my God. I completely not on purpose, but I know what oil pastels, what charcoal, what oil paint, what acrylic paint. I know what all this shit tastes like because accidents happen in the studio, just so you know. So your artist character would probably find it out too, but that's just a side note. So yeah, pushing and pulling watercolors with oil paint and acrylic. You can use the words like brushing, but scrubbing is a big one, layering, things like that. So now I want to talk about the artist's mind. Let's say you have an artist character, who's observing art in a gallery or something like this. Most people who observe art take in sort of the message and they base their judgments on that. What's the message? What is the actual picture I'm looking at? Whereas an artist's judgment of another artist's work is a bit more critical. Things that we look for. Layering. The thing with canvas is that it is a textile. It's cloth. It's cross-hatched in the back, and then usually like a piece of stretched canvas is covered in a layer of white gesso to give it that what we call tooth. It's just the texture on the canvas that holds the paint. But it's not, the gesso layer is usually not thick enough to completely cover the cross-hatching of the canvas in the back. So if the artist didn't layer enough paint on that canvas and the sun were to shine through it a certain way, you could literally see through the layers of paint, the gesso, through the cross-hatching of the canvas. So that's one thing that I look for when I'm studying another artist's work is, did they layer the paint? Is the sun shining through it and I can see the canvas behind the picture, or did they actually layer properly? Another thing too is values. Did this artist get their lights light enough? So like their light sources, their bright shades, the light, is it light enough? And did they get their darks dark enough? Are the shadows dark enough? So those are your values. It's the darks and the lights. Another thing is depth. Is there enough depth to give you as the viewer that vision of you're actually seeing into an image instead of it just being flat two-dimensional on the canvas? And color. Does this artist understand color theory? Get yourself a color wheel, my friends. So yeah, that is what the inside of an artist's mind looks like when they are critiquing a fellow artist's work. So next, we're going to talk about the artist community. Okay, so many shows portray the art community as this snobby, uppity, drink champagne and caviar, and it can be like that. It totally can be like that, but not for like me, not like the poor artist. the basic artist who doesn't have like an art broker who gets them $1 million for a painting of like a square and a line. We usually go to galleries, local galleries. I've done shows at a bunch of galleries around where I live, and usually what it's like is, unless you're doing a solo show, it's usually a combined show where a bunch of artists get together. They each, have 3 or 4 of their pieces that they hang in the gallery for a specific theme, and then the artists come out, their families come out, some fans come out. At the local gallery where I live, it is a city kind of funded gallery. So whenever we have shows, everyone kind of chips in and brings like a snack or a bottle of wine or whatever. Sometimes there's music or other entertainment like a display or whatever. And we all get together and look at each other's work and talk about craft and blah, blah, blah. Which, it's nice. It is nice. But I've had some really bad experiences showing in galleries, specifically at sort of the older galleries in like the bigger cities. I did a show at a gallery in the big city near my town, and I was doing a show with artists I had never met before, and they were all older than me. And this is common in the art community where I was a lot younger, but I feel like my talent was par for the course. It's usually what it is, all the artists showing are kind of like on par together. And yet every single fellow artist that I talk to, they love to talk about themselves, number one. But second, they all were talking down to me, even though I didn't ask for advice. It was this idea of, oh, you're a younger artist, so you must not know what you're doing, and let me just give you advice that you didn't ask for. That's extremely frustrating for me, so I kind of stopped doing art shows for a while. But, once you get into the community, if you know the people you're showing with, if you know the owners of the gallery and you have a relationship with them, it's a lot calmer. People don't really talk down to you, but that does happen when you kind of put your foot in the door of the art world. My studio smells like dust and fish eggs and paint thinner and paper. Let's see. It's a mess. Always a mess. There are so many things that go into art. Like I have like my crochet blankets, and then like beads, and then like drawers full of beads and old manuscripts and old palettes that are just disgusting. And then I have like canvas, and then I have like pastels, pencils, pens, stamps, ink, canvas, artboard, notebook, watercolor paper, vellum paper, sketchbook paper, pastel paper, more colored pencil paper, and then I have like acrylic paint, acrylic mediums, gesso, sponge brushes, regular brushes, oil paint, turpentine, paint thinner, fixative, gloss, varnish, pastels, watercolors, liquid ink, desk, clay. It's such a mess. There's just so much crap. And this is just, a lot of artists are organized, but like a lot of them are really not. Like our stuff is just everywhere, and it's so much easier for me as an artist, honestly, to be disorganized, because when I walk into my studio, I can just see where everything is. So yeah. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm just gonna stop now. I don't know. I'm rambling. This is a totally off the cuff video, but I'm an expert, so I'm just gonna talk about it. Okay, yeah. So I don't know if I'm gonna do another video in this series, but if someone found it helpful, please let me know. And then next time I'll talk about culinary school. Yeah, we'll do a culinary school I'm an expert vlog or whatever. No resource today. No shame. I have no shame. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. And you should be writing about artists in the art world and making art. Yeah, bye.